Yo, what up?
Hey, hey, what's up?
The usual, just out here reading.
Nice. You ready for our little daily exercise?
Always, man. Are you ready? That's the question. Are you ready? I think it's the
Yep.
first time we're letting the people watch it live, though. You know what I'm saying? It's different.
Yeah. So give everyone a rundown. Basically, this is something that me and Q Harrison do almost daily. We just basically take the most interesting articles that we've recently read, kind of bounce ideas back and forth, and figure out what we're going to talk about next. So we got 8 of them today. Let's kick it off. First of all, cancer spotting AI. Why does it need to be handled with care? Now, this is something we've been hearing about for like 3 to 4 years, right? IBM's kind of been that brand champion of AI that can spot cancer, but from what I've heard from healthcare professionals, like it's really not that great. It's better just to kind of use the human eyeball. What's your
Yeah.
take here, Q?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's 2020 and Google has literally taken the AI healthcare trophy for this month. They have dominated the headlines with basically an algorithm that can spot breast cancer and mammograms more accurately than doctors. And for obvious reasons, everyone is kind of like a little bit bamboozled. They feel uneasy. And one of the things that this article really pointed out was that doctors and nurses are not things that can just be easily digitized into ones and zeros. And in some areas where tech companies may push medical AI, there might be some limitations to, the type of care that we receive from software and algorithms. And it could even exacerbate existing problems in the medical system today. And I thought that this article was quite good. You can read it, it's in The Verge. And one of the things that was most fascinating, in addition to the news that they kind of covered here, was the doctor that brought up this concept that there's no gold standard for what constitutes cancer. So even though you might get an algorithm that can identify cancer and all the different types of cancers, or even identify new forms of cancers that we didn't even know existed, there's no constitution as to if this cancer is deadly or good. And like if we just go around miscalculating or mislabeling cancer that would never even harm a person over their lifetime, well then is the algorithm doing any justice? Curious your take on that, Kadri.
Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting take. I It seems a little bit more philosophical than I think we have time to discuss. I'd love to hear what people in the comments are thinking. Like, would you want to go to the same physician you have if you knew that they were using AI to kind of, basically monitor your body? I don't know. It's
Yeah,
something that we're going to have to address in the coming years.
for sure, for sure. I mean, I would opt to do if I went to the doctor tomorrow and they were like, "Yo, do you want the algorithm or the human to assess you?" I probably would go with both. I'd be like, "Can I get both? Can I get the combo? Can I get the combo?"
Combo number 5, please.
Yeah, let me get that combo. I need that computer to recognize some stuff. I need that human to look at it. I need a nurse to look at it. I just need all the practitioners. Like, give me what you got.
Definitely.
I think that that
All right.
might that might cost a little bit of money though.
It will. All right. Let's move on to the next one. Enough of this.
I don't want to talk about the combo. Well, I still got more healthcare technology for you though.
Of course you do.
Yeah,
All right.
health tech. I love my health tech, man. This one hit a little bit home because for the longest, whew, 23andMe has been like the king of like getting all my friends to take these DNA tests.
Yep.
Did you take one?
I didn't, but I think somebody in my family did, which basically meant that I took one, which I'm kind of pissed about.
Why are you pissed off about taking a DNA test that you didn't take?
I don't know. I mean, I've just, I'm a healthy skeptic of certain technologies, and the idea of my DNA just being out there in some database, I'm not a personal fan of. That's all.
Well, unfortunately, the CEO of 23andMe basically broke it down to the world that 100 people from her company are going to be laid off. And that's never a good news announcement or announcement to make in general. So it's sent a lot of skeptics to, I would say, a parade status where they're saying, "Yeah, consumer genetics fad, it's over." And this article in the MIT Technology Review was fascinating because it made me think on the whole DNA test era, or I can't even call it an era because it was like 2 years, right? Where people were just going and buying these tests, and they were seeing it on TV and Facebook ads and Instagram ads, and basically they were like, "Yo, if I buy this test, pay $2.99 or $1.99 or $99 to shine, I could figure out, what my ancestry is. I could figure out what my genetic breakdown is, what things I might be more susceptible to, and just what insights can I glean?"
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah, it's. I think in that sense, when you describe it like that, it actually almost. And the ironic part is, it actually mirrored the kind of prominence of Bitcoin too. Like they both had a huge spike in like late 2017, early 2018. Everybody was into it, but it's kind of like fizzled off a bit. I think what they're putting out here is basically saying that I don't think the fad is over. I think there's a lot more value to be taken out of DNA aside from just people knowing, whether or not they're part Neanderthal. Like that was the hook to get people interested, right? The whole idea behind this, consumer genetics is to build out the internet of DNA, right? And actually take all of these genetic insights and match up rare diseases and the treatments that work so that, people who have a prevalence of like 100 or only 100 cases in the world, they can find that same treatment that worked for somebody else. Like that's what the idea of collecting people's genetics is all about, not necessarily whether or not 23andMe is selling DNA tests at the same rate they were a year ago. So I think that it's definitely not. I think the what they point out here is consumer genetics fad over. I think we still need to see another app that comes out that makes use of these DNA tests to start to see a resurgence of it, I would say.
No, I'd agree with that. I think I like to add on to the whole point of we need to see an app. Yes, I mean, there's an API for 23andMe. I'd be curious to see what developers kind of do once we know what the actual numbers are. So, I think in this article they say there's about 26 million people altogether that have ever bought one of these tests. I think that number is still kind of small when you think about like how big Snapchat is as a social network.
Mm-hmm.
They're encroaching on almost 500,000,000 users worldwide, and 26 million is not enough to build necessarily a social network that's gonna like have scale, because that's on across like Ancestry, 23andMe, and then like you've got a few other companies in the consumer genetics fad ecosystem. So dialing back, I feel like once this number gets to 300 million and a developer can say, "Oh, 23andMe, I can build like the Facebook equivalent where you have to sign in and your genetic, like if you don't have this trait in your DNA, you can't get in this network."
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah, I can see that.
discriminatory? I don't know. Like, or is it like just saying we're regulating? Like, if you ain't got this trait, you can't get in. I don't have an exact thought, but that's where my mind goes. We can build this
Yeah,
theory out later. I got more articles.
definitely.
With that being said, Inevitable Human, we dropped some new not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about AI against pandemics or
Yep.
pandemics.
Yeah.
Um,
This was a fascinating thing that, well, not only a read for all of you folks, but for writing it. It was actually kind of enjoyable to write, as bizarre as that sounds, but it was just interesting to see that there was, in fact, a company out there who was able to kind of spot this before the CDC and the World Health Organization could.
break it down.
They
What did they spot? What did they spot, man? For the people
they
that don't know.
spotted the basically emergence of the coronavirus,
Mm-hmm.
and they did it by monitoring like forums and local articles
Mm-hmm.
from foreign languages. So basically, in that province of China, Wuhan or whatever, they were able to kind of just basically tap in and see, okay, this might be something happening here, something brewing. And
Mhm.
they're a company that uh, their algorithm is entirely designed to do that. So that's like their whole thing. This is kind of similar to something that Google Flu Trends did, like I think it was like over 10 years ago, like
Mhm.
12 years or something.
Yeah.
They basically just tracked people's search behaviors to see whether or not, hey, if is something brewing in this whole, epidemic space.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is an awesome Inevitable Human article. Lots of good insights there. You should check it out on inevitablehuman.com. And if you want to join our weekly members call where we do a similar call like this, but with all Inevitable Human members, I would become a member. You can sign up on the website. With that being said, I'm going to jump into the next article, which I think this one parlays right into the DNA social network thing that we talked about. The trend
Mm-hmm.
here is micro networks. So we have social networks, but we're saying a micro network is a private social network that's capped at a limited amount of users that ideally is, exclusive family, friends, or like coworkers or colleagues that you want to like just, stay connected to, but you don't necessarily want to broadcast all your information to, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
if I go on a trip and I post that trip on Facebook, everybody I'm connected to it sees that. Classmates, colleagues, family members, friends, exes, you name it. If I'm connected to them on Facebook, they probably seen it. And sometimes you don't really want your business out there. I mean, your digital footprint is one that you should probably spend a lot of time consolidating and keeping tidy. I mean, look, just Google 12 years ago could tell if you had the flu or not from Google search history. Now that's pretty gangster, right?
Yeah.
So this trend of micro networks is very fascinating. There's a new social network that has kind of been announced. It's called Cocoon. It was founded on, I think, like last November. So it's been out for a little bit, but it's very much like Facebook in a sense that it's a social network. So you can
Mm-hmm.
post things to a wall, you can have private messages, you can kind of share updates. Guess what? It's a social network, but it's limited to the 12 people that you have in your group. So you can only have 12 people. That's the maximum. Maybe they'll change that at a later date because, this reminds me a lot of like MySpace. I feel like we're going back in the MySpace
Mm,
era. If
that's yeah.
you remember that, you had a fave 5 or your top 10.
Yeah, I even remember when cell phone carriers were starting to design around that the
Yeah.
fave five or whatever.
So this is very reminiscent of that. I actually think that this is a trend that's going to catch on, and I think the next evolution of this is you obviously have to get cocoons to evolve from our current iMessage group because like our family does something similar to this, but it's all through iMessage. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone was kind of forced to get an iPhone. You were team Android. It's 2020 now. It was no reason for you still being green in the group chat. They just moved you, and you probably got two phones if you still got that Android.
Yeah, I mean, our family's not quite that savage. We have the text message group, and
Oh man.
let me tell you, there's a lot of hate from the iPhone users to the Android users who are like, hey, get on. I will buy you an iPhone just to get on it. Like,
Hey,
there's that happening, but no, it's. I mean, you're right. This is messaging groups. Just hopefully the less messy version. I think.
yeah, for sure. And I think the cool thing about these private micro networks is if 23andMe gets their stuff together, you could sign into your private micro network with your DNA, you know what I'm saying? So the iPhone already got the fingerprint. It already's got the biometrics, so the facial profile. All it needs now is that DNA.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need my advisory shares for that. So if someone goes and builds it. So
All right.
move
We can
on.
do it.
As we were talking about iOS devices, today or yesterday was a very special day because the iPad is now 10 years old. So happy birthday to the iPad. It's officially been with us for a decade. The iPad to me has been a special little piece of technology. I remember the first one, I was not a fan. Second one, I was not a fan. third one, it started to win me over. I was like, okay, a little Safari on the iPad. It's kind of fast too. Like I was kind of getting behind with the iPad 3, and they dropped that Air on us, and the Air was just was game changing. That's when I think I actually migrated to the iPad. It was either the Air or the Mini. I think I got a Mini, and then I moved on to the Air in that generation, or the Air 2 or whatever. But today, the iPad's an instrumental device, and I think both of our routines. I use the
Mm-hmm.
iPad to do everything from keynote presentations to checking and reading the news to sending emails through Superhuman. My iPad is like it even controls my car. You know this. I have the console in the car with the iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm a big fan. 10 years ago we didn't have the iPad. 10 years later we got the iPad, and I think my life is it's kind of it would be a lot different without it. What about you? Would you?
Yeah, it took me a while to get into it, but you really kind of just, it's one of those devices you got to find what the routines are that are useful with it, and then you're just going to love them, learn the tools with it. For me, it's editing videos and creating, any type of visual content, to be honest. Super simple on it, like using the Apple Pencil and whatnot. But if it comes to writing, like I refuse to write in a Google Doc on there. Like it's just not the same experience. So you got to kind of pick and choose your battles. In that sense, it's not the perfect device
It's
for
getting
work,
better
but
though, man. Like with the iPad Pro and the keyboard and the pencils, and like you got a full browser on the joint now. Like, I mean,
yeah,
come on, it's
I
a
mean,
lot. I mean, for maybe for you and your special workflow, but I feel like I'm not gonna hear the iPad's not a real computer, not good for the workflow. I feel like you got a lot of workarounds. It reminds me of the Mac in 2004. Did you have a MacBook in 2004?
nah.
Like, dude, I'm not even gonna talk about that, but like, you had to find a workaround for everything. Like, they didn't even have Word. I think Word may have just came to the Mac in like '04, '05, but like, you had to use like, yeah, the iLife suite. If you had a Macintosh back then, you know what that iLife.
All right.
You
Well,
know
if
about that
anybody's
iLife.
still watching this video this late, let's this far into the video, let us know. Are you into the iPad? What are you into? I mean, what do you
Yeah.
think about
I mean, all right, fine. Ryan over here hating. I'm gonna get into this because I thought this article was quite fascinating. So, Atari branded hotels with esports studios and game rooms are coming to the US. And this is fascinating to me because it represents kind of two things. The first thing is you see a brand like Atari. It's kind of cultish, it's nostalgic, it leads to great memories for a lot of people. And then you see something like a hotel. Hotel is like, like you got the Four Seasons, and that's like a luxury experience. Then you got like the Hilton, which is like an accommodation, like you know what you're getting, and then you got everything in between and everything underneath. Atari doesn't. It's like a juxtaposition of both, right? It's like, what does an Atari hotel look like? But with the trend that we're seeing with esports and gaming, I think that this could be like the next version of Disney World, bro. Like, I mean, imagine playing an Atari game like at a Atari inspired arcade that like is certified and stamped by the Atari brand. Like, this is like how they want you to experience it, and then like being able to continue that game right in your room. Like when you go upstairs and you pick up the little controller and you're like, dog, I could keep my high score going because it's all
it?
connected to like your hotel key card or something. Like that's something I know that you probably want to do the next inevitable human retreat at.
Yeah, I mean this. It looks kind of like, how I'm forgetting the term that people use, but when they design their space so that people will take Instagram photos at it,
Oh,
like this
those
is what it sounds.
experiences, an Instagram experience. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can see that for esports, for the esports phenomena, kids.
yeah, and which isn't bad, but I mean, even aside from Instagram, it just looks like a place that people would want to create content at. Like everyone who went there for the first like 2 or 3 years would all share it, like we're there, and so they're gonna. I think if this does come to fruition, they're gonna like just get a lot of free press off of it.
For sure. I mean, the industries and areas that they're coming to are a little weird. I feel like it popping off in Phoenix first is not my first choice, but they've got a reason for that, I'm sure. And then it's going to Austin, Chicago, Denver, and Las Vegas, and even San Diego, or no, San Francisco, San Jose, and then Seattle. I can rock
Hmm.
with most of those cities, but Phoenix. I can't.
Yeah,
I mean, Phoenix. Like, I would have picked not as the first one. Like, I'm not going out of my way to go to the Atari Hotel in Phoenix, but I would go for like Austin. I'd go to Chicago. I'd even go to Denver or Vegas. San Fran, that's easy. Seattle or San Jose is an easy go. Seattle's an easy go, but Phoenix, bro, like, come on. Like,
maybe maybe they're doing a little fire fest here. They're gonna have a massive failure in the mid 2020s on purpose or something.
nah, I'm not going to wish failure on anybody. I feel like Atari, man. Atari got Pac-Man in the fold. Like, I'm rocking with
True.
Atari, so I think that they know what they're doing. This is like a Disney World competitor. You see, they didn't put Orlando on that mug. You see, they didn't put Anaheim on that mug. They staying away from Disney. They ain't trying to bring that action to Disney. Atari
True.
versus Disney.
I
Come on.
wouldn't pick that fight either.
Really? I mean, but you got Capcom versus Marvel, so Capcom kind of took it to Disney because Disney owns Marvel. You know what I'm saying? All right, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
to.
Nothing.
On a more serious note, this is just an interesting story. This started to develop about a week ago, and I've been following it loosely. But there was an article that came out. What was that? It was called. What was that technology called? It was called Clearview AI. And Clearview AI had this interesting write up in the New York Times. And essentially it was like, hey, we scraped all these public photographs on Facebook, YouTube, other websites, including Google Images, and we now have this database of facial recognition where we can pretty much tell you who that person is if we have ever kind of ran across their name. And you link up a database like that with uh, like a database that contains driver's licenses and or government issued IDs. And guess what? Like, it becomes quite an interesting conversation for a public company or a private company to have access to any of this technology. So 40 organizations basically created a petition, and it's a letter of recommendation made to the President of the United States saying that facial technology should be under further review. We should probably ban this stuff. We should probably pause the utilization of it right now because we need to put some red tape and some regulations around this. And you've gotten some very interesting people to step forward. I know Google has been very vocal in this. I've seen some stuff about Microsoft and even local governments, like including San Francisco and Massachusetts, like Somerville, the city out there. They've been saying, hey, we're going to prevent private companies from deploying any of this type of technology. And we don't know if this is going to work or not. So this is something I'm just following. Ryan, I'm curious if you have any thoughts. Like,
Yeah. Just one thought. So I think to color it in too, I vaguely remember seeing this, not this particular article, but wasn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Clearview AI, their database that they put together was so big that the next closest uh, database of like facial photographs was like 10 times less than Clearview's, and it was like the FBI or something. So
oh
like
wow,
so Clearview had like 10x the number of basically analyzed photographs as the CIA or FBI. I forget which one it was, but that's kind of what I saw about this. So clearly, to have Google and Microsoft hop into this and get a little get a little nervous, it must be something big.
yeah, I would agree. I think one of the things that is fascinating to me, I remember uh, reading this. This was a while ago, uh, back when the original team at Google was still in place on the leadership side. So that's like Eric and I think it was Larry Page and Sergey. Uh, they were all talking about like technology that scared them. And one of the things that they had mentioned was facial recognition technology, and how fast it got really good. They were saying, like, hey, we didn't realize machine learning and images and data sets, when the right people are behind those numbers, you can do some very creepy things. And what we want to do is we want to not do the creepy stuff, but allow people to do all the things that are right on the borderline of creepy. And Ben Thompson actually did a great write up on that. So if you read Stratechery, you should just go check out his thoughts on this facial recognition technology stuff. It's quite fascinating, but I think this is very much the precipice of just this debate at large, and there's a lot of sides to choose. Like, I see why the law enforcement are going about it the way that they're going about it. We, as just regular consumers, we don't really have no privacy. I mean, dude, you unlock your iPhone within with a biometric system, whether it be fingerprint or facial recognition. You think Apple really ain't sharing that information with people? Like, I mean, they say they're not, but like, they also give over those iCloud keys whenever they are asked politely.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
gonna get
We'll
into
see.
it. This gets a little. This gets a little dense. This is not. It's worth watching, but all I say is like people, you don't have any privacy. Uh, we've traded privacy for convenience. It's not like we can walk back here now. I think what we can do is just be aware of what these companies are tracking and how they're tracking that data, and then we can kind of draw a line in the sand. With that being said, I want to jump into the last thing. This is a little bit lighter, but not really. Brian, you
Hmm.
probably remember playing this game, Plague.
Yeah,
That
not this particular one, but I remember other ones where it was like, you gotta stop the spread of a pandemic or something.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm familiar with them.
And what's interesting about this is the coronavirus obviously has taken over the media, and it's an outbreak that's very real. With that, people are trying to educate themselves. So they're going and downloading the Plague Inc. game. And that's a game that's on the iOS App Store. I believe it's also on the Android App Store as well. And people are trying to like play the game as a scientific model. So the developer of the game had to say, hey, look, this is just a game. It's not a scientific model. And the current coronavirus outbreak is very real. And it's a situation that's impacting a huge number of people. And you need to not use this game to, basically fearmonger people and say like, this is what's gonna happen if you do X, Y, and Z. And obviously it's on the paid apps chart. It's number one in a few countries right now. The now China's top paid iOS game. So the severity of it is mad real. Obviously, there's a lot of people telling all types of stories. What I gotta say is, stay up to speed, wash your hands, protect yourself. Check out is it the World Health Orders? Is that their website? Is that where they're covering all the good stuff, Calgary?
World Health
Yeah,
Organization.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The World Health Organization. Check out their
Yeah, I
website.
mean,
Stay up to speed, but like, don't get fear mongered into just some social media post or something someone told you that's not really fact checked, because
yeah,
this is a real thing, and we don't
yeah.
want false
Listen,
information to spread.
you wouldn't prepare for the NFL draft by playing Madden 19, the video game for months and years. So don't trust a video game to inform you of where you should go to hide from the plague. Like this is come on, people.
Yeah, I can't say it better myself. With that being said, that's all I got. I'm about to go back to work. Calgary, you got anything to add?
No, go check out Inevitable Human. We're having these conversations daily.
Yeah, with the members and myself. I mean, pretty soon I'm going to be talking to my future self. You ever thought about that? You talking to your
Every
future
day.
self? Oh, you do that too? I do that all the time too. I'm like, dang, my future self would love to know this.
Yeah, you know what you can do is you can open your little voice memos and just
Yep.
like leave yourself a memo, but advice to your future self if in case a scenario comes up,
You
and
set a
then like you can
reminder?
go,
You set a
huh?
reminder? You set a reminder for the future then? You attach that note?
Yeah, you could do. I mean, you can do millions of things, but leave those voice memos for your future self. You're gonna love it.
I could rock with that. All right. Well, with that being said, I'm out. I'll catch you all in the future. Calgary, it was great chatting with you, and
Yep.
have fun.